What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Streckbein, joined always by my main man, Jacob Punturi. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 1-1. Yesterday was rough. This is not a Victory Monday episode, and it is a complete 180 downfall from a week ago when we came on to this podcast early in the morning on a Monday and talked about how great things are and how high the ceiling is for the black and gold. Today, it is about how cooked the Steelers are, how bad things can get. Well, we'll try to keep it optimistic, but there are three subjects to talk about. And if they fix all three of them, the Steelers are fine. They're a Super Bowl contender once again, and one of them should be able to be fixed relatively quickly. The problem is that it shouldn't have been broken in the first place. We're diving into all of it from yesterday's 31-17 loss. It's a good one here in the Berg, and I said it yesterday, or I said it this morning on my to-go when I was walking out of the stadium yesterday recording it. I walked down the rotunda, and I looked at all the seats, and then I looked out onto the river, and it was a beautiful day. It was a beautiful afternoon where the city of Pittsburgh was glowing, and you just felt as if everybody in it was miserable. And it was like, wow, that's a brutal situation to be in, but that's where the Steelers were. We'll dive into it step by step, but first I'll ask you on a rough Monday here, how you feeling, my friend?
You know, I have less glee in my heart today based off of the results from yesterday's Steelers game. But I am trying to just, bring the optimism a little bit. It's a Monday.
Yeah,
It's been beautiful. I was able to get up and go for a little bit of a walk before it got too light out. Again,
beautiful.
those hot girl walks are really starting to pay off for me. I really believe so. So I'm hanging in there. Lots to dive into. I've spent a lot of time since the game ended yesterday afternoon, rewatching things, diving through what happened, trying to figure out how cooked they are, to use your word from a minute ago, or
Yes.
what. And there is just lots to dive into. So with a little bit of sorrow, I also have a little bit of excitement to dive into all this stuff.
I like that you're trying to keep the optimism. I feel the same way. I'm also stunned we haven't walked into each other on these walks yet, but that's okay. We'll get there eventually. Maybe us and the deer one day, we'll all just meet in a creepy alley and it'll be fun. Let's start with the defense. We could talk Mike Tomlin and that'll come into this, and we'll eventually get into the offensive side of things, but I got to start with the defense here. The Pittsburgh Steelers through two games are allowing 31.5 points per game. Their opposing quarterbacks are Sam Darnold and Justin Fields. You put that on paper and it's yikes. It's actually awful. It's worse than you could ever imagine, because you could talk the Pittsburgh Steelers defense maybe are giving up bad games to Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry or Josh Allen or Joe Burrow. But what you never imagined was Justin Fields losing and still scoring 32 points. And then the following week, after the Steelers, our defense claimed that everything was going to be fine and that they were pissed off and that they were going to make the adjustments, and it was okay having a worse game and giving up just one less point this time, with the offense unable to save them because, as some have pointed out and we tried to deny, the revenge game did play a role for Aaron Rodgers and company, and that momentum was there for sure. What is wrong with the defense is the first question I have, because you look at it and say Jalen Ramsey makes a play and then gives up a play, and TJ Watt is non-existent. He doesn't even exist out there. He's been 6 games without a sack, and if you're getting paid $41 million a year and you're not doing anything, there are major questions about whether or not you are worth $41 million a year. Cam Hayward is still very up in the air on whether or not his impact is there. The inside linebackers are nowhere to be found whatsoever. And I'm sorry, but I never thought that the loss of Deshaun Elliott would be as significant. And I love Deshaun Elliott as a player, but I never thought that the loss of Deshaun Elliott would be as significant as what we saw yesterday, when Juan Thornhill tried and failed to tackle anybody in a Seattle Seahawks uniform. I'll ask you, and I kind of hope you have an answer for me. I don't know if there is one. What is wrong with the Steelers defense right now? Because it's bad, my friend. It's bad.
Yeah, it's really bad. And there's not just one problem, there are multiple ones, and they sort of all intersect and impact one another. There is the first thing that was evident while I was going back and watching through the game again was they don't seem very fast to me, especially when it comes to pass coverage. Jalen Ramsey, they it seems the book on him might be out that slants and crossing routes are the way to beat him. He's given every single person he's covered, and over the 2 weeks, this has been mostly Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith and Jigba, a ton of room off the line of scrimmage. And we've seen those wide receivers pick up yardage easily. And the Seahawks yesterday moved down the field very easily because of it. You see the same issue with Juan Thornhill. We see the same issue with pretty much the entire defense. I'm not sure if it is just purely lack of foot speed, but this idea of them being able to man up everybody when it comes to pass coverage is failing through 2 weeks. So that tells me I ran through all of them. Peyton Wilson, the best cover linebacker in the world, allows allows 3 receptions on 3 targets whenever he was targeted. One was a 24-yard long run by tight end Elijah Arroyo. So there's these plays can't happen. And then there is this other part of it that's careening up against it, where they're not matching up correctly against offenses. They are so often losing these battles where I saw a clip of the Seahawks fullback running through Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson. You probably saw the same clip too on a run. And not that Cole Holcomb was any better in the limited snaps he was in, but it seems like they don't have the right pieces in at the right time. They have all these guys who are supposed to be excellent pass coverage players who aren't covering, but they're not meant for the answering a running back in the middle of the line of scrimmage. And so you see fullbacks taking 2 of them out. And then you see, Cam Hayward, the only way he's been effective is in the run stuffing game. He's on the defensive end. Offenses know to just run away from him. Then you have Keanu Benton and Y.A. Black sort of trying to make up the difference, but not very well. Keanu Benton seems to be very often misplaced in the nose tackle position when he should be at the D end. So you have all of these issues where they're not fast enough against opposing offenses, but then when they try to fix the matchups and go schematically to try and figure those things out, it seems like they're just missing on what they're doing. So there's lots of problems. I think a lot of it right now, what I'm summing up here, is it comes down to finding the right balance of coaching versus personnel. And I'm not sure they're finding that balance at all. It seems completely out of whack. Are you seeing something different or more obvious that I'm leaving out?
No, that's exactly what it comes down to. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense is slow. Okay. And that's an alarming situation, but you fix slow by getting to the quarterback. The Steelers aren't able to get to the quarterback. That's how they've always done this. Is you could put Joey Porter, who didn't play, I get it, Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey out there and say, you guys have to man really fast guys, and you're not fast enough to keep up with them, but you're fast enough to keep up with them close. You're not going to get 10 yards on Jalen Ramsey or Joey Porter or Darius Slay and win that battle. You're going to get 40 yards on them. That's when you're going to get ahead of them. But it's going to take a minute. And how you get that, how you beat that, is getting to the quarterback. The Steelers cannot by no means get to the quarterback. I see people constantly defending Patrick Queen. Patrick Queen had maybe the only opportunity to sack a Sam Darnold cleanly yesterday and missed it completely. Sam Darnold is not mobile. He is not a guy that should be elusive enough to escape a Patrick Queen open sack. It just shouldn't happen. And that's what's happening. The Steelers defense relies so heavily right now on getting to the quarterback, and they can't get to the quarterback. And I mean, in my eyes, it all comes down right now, as crazy as it sounds. It's true. The best outside linebacker that's playing for the Steelers through 2 weeks, and granted, he only played in 1 game, is Nick Herbig. And it's very obvious that it's Nick Herbig. TJ Watt's nowhere to be found. I get it. He's got 2 tackles for loss against the Jets. They ran it 700 times. You should have 2 tackles for loss. You did literally nothing against Seattle. You're switching to the other side of the line and doing absolutely nothing over there in a very minimal role. You want to win football games? You want to fix your defensive front? Have a presence right now that is scary, and you're paying $41 million plus an added $3 million to Cam Hayward's contract for neither of those guys to be a threat whatsoever to an offense, like whatsoever. You're not going to win games doing that. I mean, I think it's the slow part of it. I think the defense is slow, but you can beat slow when your defense is nasty and physical. They did it for years with Ike Taylor, who is not fast, being their cornerback one, but not allowing offenses to get comfortable with their pass rush. They have 0 pass rush right now, like none whatsoever. And we could talk defensive line, but I think that's strictly, are you going to play better? You know, is Keanu going to, that's your best bet. Is Keanu Benton going to play better? Because frankly, Logan Lee went out there for 2 plays yesterday and made 2 tackles and looked like the best nose tackle they have. So is it going to turn around? But I think it comes down to being slow. And then I think it comes down to Mike Tomlin, man. I think that there is no juice on this team whatsoever. There hasn't been juice in a long time for the Pittsburgh Steelers and their coach. I mean, you wrote about him this morning. You put a big, giant, blatant article out there about how Mike Tomlin lives in his fears all the time, and it kills the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll give you the floor here. Like, it's bad, man. And we're at a point where, like, every time this happens with Mike T, you question it more and more of, is it ever going to turn around? Is it? Or is Mike Tomlin just a coach that he ruins the juice? He doesn't provide it anymore, and he knows all the good things to say, but in games, you know, he's not going to give you that spark. And we saw it yesterday on that 4th and 1. I'll give you the floor. What's your thoughts on Mike T, especially after yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's overreaction Monday, so I'm trying very hard not to go like fully there when it comes to this. But the Mike Tomlin's response to being asked about that 4th and 1 question just like drove me bonkers. I like stewed about it while I was writing about it for this morning, like, because he said, I'll paraphrase what he said, but he said he was basically trying to protect the defense by setting up a long field for the Seattle Seahawks because they had been depleted by injuries. It was later in the game. Okay, let's break that down. Your defense is injured, beaten up. You've lost 4 players in this game. And the logic is that you want to protect the defense that will go out on the field by putting them on the field. I just don't understand how the best defense is offense. Like, you have 4th and 1, you're coming off of, you know, Jalen Warren showing you a little bit of life. For all of the issues that happened yesterday, the offensive line wasn't like a huge number one on my issue. There was problems still, but like Broderick Jones responded well. Troy Fautanu had a couple of slip-ups as well, but like offensive line was like lower on my list of issues. They probably could have gotten that yard, and in a 14-14 game when the ball was at midfield, how are you not going for it there? Punting the ball there, you can swing it any way you want. Tomlin can, you know, say the perfect thing. That was a fearful move. That was a Tomlin, and I mentioned this in the article as well. It made me think of that, you know, the quote that we talk about in Tomlinisms of like, we don't live in our fears, we live in our hopes. That is completely by the wayside by that punt on 4th and 1 yesterday. I don't understand it. I don't buy the reasoning behind it. I think it was a move for someone playing to preserve a tie, not to get a lead. And I just do not understand that whatsoever. Can Tomlin like regain the juice, so to speak, to use your terminology? Of course he can. He's he's the longest tenured coach in the NFL for a reason. Like, my hope has not completely been erased in Mike Tomlin. That being said, I think from him and really all of the biggest names on the Steelers should probably be a little bit more accountable when it comes to these losses, because I don't like hearing we were doing this to protect the defense for this strategic reason. Like, you could just say like, bad decision, shouldn't have done it. Like,
Yeah,
why is that not a better
yes.
answer? Like,
I
I
agree.
just don't understand that at all. I found it to be very frustrating, living in his fears for sure. And for a team that's all in, you just can't live in your fears, right? Unless you're not really as all in as you say. But, through 2 weeks, they maintain that sort of mindset and mantra. And I think a team that's all in, that considers themselves winners, goes for it on 4th and 1, finds a way to get that yard, and keeps moving the sticks. I don't see it any other way, and it's hard for me to accept any other reasoning.
No, I agree. Mike Tomlin has been a guy always that plays to win or plays not to lose rather than plays to win. And
Mhm.
if you're going to play not to lose, you're going to lose most times. That's what's going to happen. And the Steelers escape it constantly. Oh, here's a 10-win season. Here's a 9-win season. I'm going to tell you right now, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm pissed about that situation. I'm looking at it going, what are we doing? And I think the craziest part is that the entire stadium booed that decision. The entire stadium booed that decision. And it happens more and more. We are getting to a point, dangerously to a point, where the fire Canada chants become fire Tomlin, and it's so consistent that there's nowhere else to go. There's no scapegoat in Pittsburgh anymore. Aaron Rodgers can give a rat's butt if you think he should leave because he's here for a season and then he's out if it goes south. There is no coordinator in Pittsburgh. Arthur Smith could care less if you like him or not, dude. He's an offensive coordinator who's been fired by an NFL team as a head coach. He's been through the ringer. And then you have TA, who is the most hated man in Pittsburgh, but he's fully aware. And everybody is starting to become more and more aware it's not his defense. It never has been his defense. This is Mike Tomlin's decisions. And to be very real, it's not that the defense sucked that they lost that game. It's that there was no reason to have momentum. There was no momentum given to that team whatsoever. And that's on your head coach. And that's constantly on your head coach. I don't know if it's fixable. What I do know is that Mike Tomlin is the reason that they lost that game in my head. Like, you could pinpoint a boatload of stuff that are issues, but at the end of the day, you give yourself a shot and you are not playing to win as a head coach. He never is. Tomlin is never playing to win. He's always playing not to lose. And it's protected him for a long time, but it doesn't make you a Super Bowl contender. It doesn't beat the Seahawks. It makes your defense look. That's the thing. The Steelers defense doesn't give up 31 points yesterday. They just don't. That game potentially, you think about the momentum. Okay. If you get that 4th and 1, which, is 50-50 shot, but you get that 4th and 1, the offense goes down and scores instead of gives up a field goal on the other side of that. And then turns the ball over again. Like, you have the momentum. You have everything's on your side to not lose this game. And instead it was, okay, now we got to fight from behind again and again and again. And that's Mike Tomlin's specialty, man. He does it constantly. That's what he's always done. Let's flip the switch. Let's go to the offensive side of the ball here. Wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1, wide receiver, everything sucked yesterday. Aaron Rodgers didn't look good, but let me tell you, it was not the offensive line that got him sacked as many times as it did, or he did. It was the fact that nobody was open at all. Your best receiver was Jaylen Warren. That's a problem. Have we opened up the can of worms again? Do the Steelers need a wide receiver desperately? Because yesterday was so bad. For those of you who were not at the game and could not see, I don't know what the broadcast showed. There was literally no one running after their route ended. Their route would end, they'd be covered, they'd stop, and they'd stand there, and they'd stare at Aaron Rodgers going, damn, I'm not open. What are you doing? You want to know how you get open? You keep moving around because you don't let your quarterback get sacked, but it happened constantly. DK gave up on the end of his routes constantly. I saw every single receiving option run a route, stop, turn around, stand there. They're not open. It's over. They're done. And then Aaron would get sacked. Was it there? Was the twilight zone over? Are we back to reality where the Pittsburgh Steelers need to go do something and they need to do it fast because this offense is just, you're not going to run the football. You're not going to win through the ground. So You got to do something else. Is it go get a wide receiver or something? Because, like, again, yesterday, Jaylen Warren was the offense. And we could talk, don't ever put Kenneth Gainwell in the game again. We could say that, but you're never going to put Caleb Johnson in the game again. So you got to have a backup running back somewhere. Do you go get a wide receiver? Like, have we hit that point? Are we back to reality where the Steelers need somebody else?
No. This is your question leads me kind of back to I think the problem lies in the leaders of the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. Like, I don't think the issue is they didn't have another wide receiver available. The issue was that, the wide receivers didn't finish plays or continue routes whenever they needed to. The problem is that their number one wide receiver had a couple noticeable drops for the second week in a row. And I think that is something that might be becoming a bit of a problem. I remember whenever I was in my contract dispute with the show, whenever Tori and I went to Europe, I remember running into people who were from Seattle, of course, and talking to them about DK Metcalf. And the one thing the guy said, and I was like, this guy must be like a salty fan, he was like, sometimes the guy just drops the balls that he shouldn't. And I'm like, whatever, this guy is probably mad that DK's gone. And whatever, didn't think much of it. Through 2 weeks, again, we have seen a couple noticeable drops that have been pretty bad for a number one wide receiver. So I don't think the answer is let's go have another wide receiver too. I don't think the answer is move Calvin Austin further down the depth chart. I think the answer is, can these veterans who are the number one on the depth chart in their respective positions and the leaders in the locker room, can they be the one to step up and make the difference? Like, I thought Aaron Rodgers had a chance yesterday to really take extra accountability, and he certainly did. He says he has to be better, but calling Calvin Austin like a good kid, but messing up and talking about all these other things, I'm just like, I don't think we need to go into any of that. I think we could just leave it alone and just kind of take accountability as the leader. Like, he and DK Metcalf are the leaders of this offense. They are the veterans. There's no reason to sort of go into it on any other side. The same way, when TJ Watt and Cam Hayward don't shoulder the entirety of the blame on the defensive side of the ball, it kind of rubs me the wrong way, because I'm like, you're the captains of this team. Like, you are where the buck stops, so you should be the ones responsible for it. So all that to say, I don't think it's a matter of depth personnel, filling out the depth chart, adding the right name to Aaron Rodgers' arsenal. They just need to figure it out, kind of pull their heads out of the sand here, figure out, admit that what they did to game plan for the Seahawks was brutally underwhelming and underachieving, and try to come together with a better game plan for the New England Patriots that is going to adjust to what the Patriots give them in game and find solutions. You can't go out there, run your script and keep running your game script even when the Seahawks are getting through. I don't think, again, it's not an issue of personnel. It's not an issue of the right fit. It's just them executing what they need to be executing.
I don't disagree. How long do you give it before, if nobody's executing, you got to make a change? If DK continues to drop footballs, what did he finish with yesterday? It was like 14 yards or something like that. It was ridiculous. It was, you have a revenge game on your hands and you catch one touchdown that, to be honest, you threw it up there and I was thinking, this is drop 3. This is easily drop 3. This is what's going to happen here. And then he caught it, and his drops were terrible and constant. And we go back a couple of years ago, and everybody and their mother's calling Deontay Johnson Deontay Dropson. You don't have a leash here. This is Pittsburgh. The PTSD is so real. These people have been through it. They've seen bad receiver after bad receiver. And it goes to week 1, as crazy as it sounds, we're sitting around praising Omar Khan for all of his additions to the team that make impacts. And in week 2, Jalen Ramsey comes up with a big hit and an interception, but gives up a massive reception late in that game. DK has an atrocious game. Jonnu Smith completely disappears. Don't even know what happened to that guy. Kenneth Gainwell is becoming a why? Why are you taking Jalen off the field? He's clearly your best running back what are you doing? And that's nothing against Kenny G. It's everything on how good Jalen's doing and how you keep the momentum going. You just keep it going. It was a complete 180. And maybe I agree with you that you don't have to go out and overreact, but you got you got to set a timer. What did I say last week in the wide receiver 2 conversation? You have 7 weeks to decide if you need somebody else in your receiving core. Okay, you now have 6 weeks to decide if you need somebody else in your receiving core. Week 1, you didn't. Week 2, you do. And we are now 6 weeks away from having to make that decision of yes or no. You need to go get a wide receiver, but you can't have another game like that. You go into New England and your offense stinks and DK can't catch a football and Calvin Austin doesn't catch a football and Pat Freiermuth doesn't catch a football and Jalen Warren is your best receiving option. You got to start making phone calls. You have to, because you can't sit around waiting forever for these things to work out when they're not. And I agree with the taking accountability, but accountability only gets you so far. At some point, you got to flip it on and make the changes. Those changes are not here, and I don't know if it'll happen, but we'll see what happens. We will see if it does. We will see if it does. All right. That's everything on our agenda. Wish it was a little bit more positive agenda, but whatever. It's week 2. We got a long season ahead of us. Let's start answering questions. If you got them, toss them in the chat. We'll get to as many of them as we can before we head out of here. But first, we got a quick word from our boys over at DraftKings. What's up, AST Nation? I've teamed up with DraftKings. The next great touchdown is coming. You can bet on it. And the best way to do so is through DraftKings Sportsbooks, where new customers who bet $5 get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Love the thrill of live betting? DraftKings has you covered. Bet live on in-progress games right as they happen. Then use your bonus bets to stay in on the action and bet on DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. And don't worry, if sports betting is not yet available in your state, you're fine. You can still join in on all of the fun with DraftKings daily fantasy sports and have the shot to win cash prizes. New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Sign up using my promo code ALLSteelers and get in on the action. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. All righty. Shout out to our members. Shout out to our super chatters. Can't thank you guys enough. We're going to start answering everybody's questions. Toss them in the chat if you got them. We're going to start with Blessed Light here because I want to answer this one specifically. Why does it seem the media is scared to ask Tomlin hard questions during the press conferences? Someone needs to ask him why he lived in his fears. All right. I want to explain this as somebody who was in those press conferences, who was sitting there asking the questions. There is a lot that goes into how and what you ask Mike Tomlin. It is very easy to sit here and say, why doesn't anybody ask Mike Tomlin this? And I 100% understand where you and every other fan are coming from. I get it all the time. I get friends constantly, family members constantly who text me and say, ask Mike Tomlin this. And sometimes I'm like, cool, I could do that. And sometimes I say, dude, I'm not trying to get kicked out of here. That's what you have to do. It is a game that you have to play. It is a relationship that you have to maintain. And yes, you have to ask Mike Tomlin the hard questions. You certainly do. But we have gotten enough over the years of Mike Tomlin walking out of press conferences, pretty much telling us to shut up and giving us absolutely nothing to know how and when to address a certain situation. It's just the name of the game. And it sucks. It should be way easier. There are a lot of coaches in the NFL that you could be very honest to and ask very honest questions. Mike Tomlin's not one of them. He makes it very known that he likes playing games with the media. He makes it very known that he likes lying to the media, that he views it as a challenge to get out of press conferences without giving anything away. That's his game. And again, it sucks. Me and Jacob and everybody else who's been on the show have called it out for years, saying, Mike T lies, dude. You can't listen to most things that he says. That's where we're at. And do I think that somebody should ask? For sure. But at the same time, I'm not going into that press conference after that game yesterday because Mike Tomlin's not going to give me anything but half-hearted answers. I'm going in the locker room where I could talk to Caleb Johnson, where I could talk to Cam Hayward, where I can talk to players and get real answers on how frustrated they are and why they're making decisions instead of the head coach. I wish it was better. I wish I had a better answer for you to just say, I agree, we should go do this. But Mike Tomlin is one of the worst coaches with the media. And because of that, it's really difficult to get what you want out of him and ask questions that you need and should ask in those press conferences.
For sure. For sure. Can I add something real quick to that?
Oh, for sure.
I just think like part of the challenge that like we have as like when you're in the media is finding ways to ask the really hard questions without saying it as bluntly as why do you live in your fears, right? Like it's not like no one asked about the specific play that we have been talking about in which Mike Tomlin lived in his fears, but like there is this like weird dance you have to play between like asking the question, we're trying to figure out what happened there, but like is it the best way to find out the information you need to know about what happened there by asking him about like an emotionally charged question like that? Like, or is there maybe a better way that you can phrase it that might sort of address the situation and get him to expound on it more? Like there's like that's sort of like this dance that like you play when you're in the room trying to ask these questions or trying to figure out what it is. That all being said, like I think the frustrations that come through from, you know, myself or Noah or, you know, fans or anyone else in the chat, like it's like this is the part of the game that's like so frustrating sometimes, and the human part of it too is like sometimes you just don't get the information you want to hear, sometimes you don't understand what's happening and you can't get the information you need to move forward or to figure out what's going on. So it's a crazy mess all the time. But I appreciate what Noah's like throwing out here too, because it is like this really difficult balance to try to figure out between like, I just want, because I get like I text Noah the same things all the time. I'm like, that was effing stupid. We should ask about that. And then it's like, well, like here's maybe how we should do this. Like, you know, so I appreciate Noah speaking on it because it is, trust me, everyone feels that same sort of frustrations that Blessed Light is putting out there at times whenever one situation or another.
For sure. And to clarify on my end here, because you tossed this back out there, to be clear, was not trying to throw shade, and Noah and Jacob appreciate the honesty. No, we did not by no means take that as shade. I just want to be it's more so like making sure that I am as honest as possible about the situation, because I fully understand the frustration. Like I fully understand the frustration, and it sucks. You know what I mean? Because we, in the media, me and Jacob and many others sit there afterwards and go like, dude, like we need something. Like you need to help us you need to be honest in some way. So no, it is, I 100% did not take that as shade. I want to be as honest on my end to express to you and to everybody else what is happening, so that we understand collectively what the hell's going on, because it's not great. It's not great. Brandon, not sure if it's too soon, but which was worse, Caleb Johnson's kickoff mistake or Gunnar Olszewski's 1,000 IQ toe tap kickoff? I'm going to give it to Gunners just because he was an all-pro at the time. The guy was there. Like, it was mistake 15 in a row. It was just the end of it. Caleb was a bad move for a guy that I think is very much so in his head as a rookie and is not playing good football for maybe the first time in his career, and is dealing with it. You know, I'm taking it as that. What's your thoughts here?
I mean, it just seems so evident that he did not understand what the rules are in the NFL kickoffs anymore. Like or not anymore, but since they've been changed since last season and the other updates for this year as well. And because look, because I wrote something about his response to it, and it's, I think, my new favorite, like temporary bit of just him being asked about like, do you know what the rule is? And he was like, I just got to get better every day. And I just think that's like the best thing. It's like on par with like the George Pickens stuff that we talked about a couple of months ago. Like that, Caleb Johnson might be my new favorite Steeler based solely off of that. But yeah, he's a rookie. He definitely did not know what the rule was. And,
No.
it's a little bit more forgivable it's not forgivable to like make a monstrous mistake that, cost your team points, right? Like, but I have a little bit more grace for a rookie in the NFL compared to someone who's express role. Like if Miles Killebrew goes out there and commits an egregious special teams penalty, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like your only job is to be on special teams. Like
Yes.
rookie Caleb Johnson, I'm like, this is a learning moment, big learning moment. Might cost him some
Big
games wearing a
Yeah.
hat, but it's a learning moment.
Yeah, I would imagine Caleb is not on the field much next week. Yeah, I agree. I think that's the best way to put it is like you got to give him some. It's a rough one, but you got to give him some leeway in comparison to a guy that was like, okay, that's the end of his time in Pittsburgh, and they released him very. Berserker, that great name. We play wussy ball. Tired of playing safe. We are the most unexciting team in the NFL. I paid $1,000 to take my wife to a home opener, and it was complete waste, stale, boring, living in our fears. First off, Berserker, great name, and I hope that you having a great YouTube name helps recover a little bit of that $1,000 because that's brutal. And that's what I felt yesterday. Leaving that stadium yesterday, like I was saying, I was walking down the rotunda, and as I'm looping around it, I'm just like looking out on the boats are out there. It's a beautiful day. The city of Pittsburgh is glowing. And you just look at, there's 7 people walking on the street. There's nobody in a bar anywhere. It is just, it's dead city. It's a quiet, miserable city. And that sucks, man. Like it sucks. It's one thing to get your heart broken. You know what I mean? To be like, damn, we just lost 34-32 in a crazy game. That sucks. You know what I mean? But it gives you life. Hey, man, we could get through this. You know what I mean? A couple of brews later, you're feeling all right. Half of the car ride home, you're like, look at it. It's going to be, we got a long season to go. You lose 31-17 to a bad football team, and you go, yeah, this thing might get really bad really fast. And your head doesn't change from that for days. So that's what sucks. That's what sucks the most for everybody is that, like, it's a situation. It's a game that like doesn't leave you with the optimism that maybe there's something more here, and that's the worst part. That's the worst part. You got anything to add to this, or are you good?
No, I get it. I get the frustrations, and I think they're all very valid today. I think it's just nice and important that we hold some space for it, because we can't. There's 15 games left, but that doesn't mean we have to be happy with what happened yesterday.
That's a great way to put it. Great way to put it. Papaya salad. Why does Coach Austin get a pass? He needs to go. He calls the D. Don't tell me it's Tomlin. I don't.
It is though.
It is. Like, I'm not lying. I wouldn't lie to you in that. Everybody could believe me or not believe me, but at the end of the day, I promise you that it is not Terrell Austin's voice going into Patrick Queen's helmet. It's not what's happening. So again, you could believe me or you can't. And don't get me wrong, Terrell Austin's contract expires at the end of the season. I do not believe he's going to get renewed. The Steelers are not going to fire another coordinator in the middle of the season. It's not going to happen, especially a defensive coordinator. So we can move on from that. But you could believe me or not believe me. Keith Butler said at the end of his tenure, at the last year he was there, he said it 10 times. He was like, yeah, it's not really my defense. So, shocker. So, again, believe or don't believe, but it's the truth. It's Mike Tomlin's defense. Chris, guys, I am really disappointed in the team. Tomlin has to take accountability for the highest paid defense looking inept. Caleb Johnson, what the bro? See, I bleep myself out on that one. I'm good. I'm getting good at this.
Was that a shot at me? Shot at me for last week?
It was look at dude. We were fired up. I'm shocked that there hasn't been more aggressive F words out in this one because last week was an excitement. This week was a like I am miserable right now. I mean, you're not wrong. Everything here is spot on. Mike Tomlin has to take accountability. The ISD defense is going on. What is happening? I'll add to this one for Chris and Nate at the same time. Nate needs more salad. Can we assume Caleb Johnson loses his kick return spot next week? We think that's the case?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Going to be Kenny G, Jalen Warren. I'd love to see Calvin Austin back there.
No, Kenny G and Roman Wilson, right? That would be my guess. Kenny G. I just think you're putting a lot on Jalen's plate at that point. You know what I mean? Although who's
Well,
back there? It was
you gotta
Jalen at the end of the game, right?
It was Jalen, and I think that's, like,
Uh,
an immediate, like, we need someone back there we trust, so, like, you're gonna put him back there. Would make sense for him not to do it, but, like, I don't see this Kenny G, experiment on offense going away. Like, I think he's gonna keep getting touches and reps, so, you know, extra reps and snaps for Jalen Warren or Calvin Austin might not seem like too much of an extra burden on them because
no.
Kenny G's playing 20 offensive snaps a game. You know what I mean?
I do. And I like Kenny G, man. And it's nothing against Kenny G. It's all Jalen
No.
Warren. Like, why are you taking Jalen off the field? Why are you doing that? Ryan, all I wanted on my birthday Monday was a victory Monday. Happy birthday, my dude. But all he got was a Steelers team that somehow has the same problems as last year with better talent. It's a pretty spot on way to identify what is happening here, is that this Pittsburgh Steelers team is everything that we thought it was a year ago, with the best team on paper they've had in 5, 6, 7 years. You know, that's atrocious. That's where we're at. First off, happy birthday,
Nightmare.
my dude. And it is a nightmare, dude. Do you think any of it is just the fact that they only got a summer together? Like, do you think any of it is the fact that they didn't play in the preseason? And I am not a preseason component. I am not a proponent. I am not you got to play them in the no, preseason's dumb. But do you think that there's any element of like this team just is not working together right now?
No, not because they didn't play together in the preseason. I just what else was the point of bringing in all of these veterans then? Like, I don't understand. Like, Jalen Ramsey doesn't get better by if he would have played 18 snaps in the preseason instead of 9 that he did against whoever it was. I don't think it would have been better for TJ Watt. I don't think he would have ended his sack drought by
Yes.
playing in the preseason. I don't think, like, yeah, so no, I don't think the preseason was the answer to figuring this out. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is today, Noah, to be quite honest. I mean, but I don't know what the one issue is that, if corrected tomorrow or against the Patriots, would suddenly reverse this 2-week trend that's really like a year-long trend that has been happening for the Steelers defense dating back to last season. So, yeah, happy birthday, Ryan. That's great. Probably was a wonderful day for you, I'm sure. And hopefully the Steelers defense can figure it out a little bit better. But I mean, Drake May just had the breakout game of his career last week.
All right, but let's breathe it out on that one. It's the Miami Dolphins, okay? Come on. Artie Burns was going to start before Artie Burns got hurt, and then the guy who replaced him, Storm Duck, fantastic name, got hurt as well. They're down to two tiers below Artie Burns, okay? I'm not saying that they can't lose. I'm not saying the Steelers can't lose. All I'm saying is anybody sitting around, my brother, I scored 180 fantasy points yesterday because Drake May went off, okay? And he was like, that's my dude. And I said, bro, the Miami Dolphins, okay? Let's breathe out, okay? Let's give them a week.
Fins up,
baby. Fins up, fins down, fins all around. Dolphins ain't good. Cody Silva. A reporter asked Tomlin, are changes going to be made? Tomlin certainly are going to be made. Tomlin certainly next week. Nothing is going to change. Tomlin has to be right no matter what. I mean, first off, it's too early to make changes. Like, there are no changes to be made. Play better. That's where we're at. There's nobody that like is the glaring issue. TJ Watt not getting a sack in 6 games is the glaring issue. Cam Hayward not playing well is the glaring issue. Not having a running game, but not having a running back to help out is the glaring issue. Like, DK Metcalf dropping passes is the glaring issue. Week 2 was not Broderick sucks. That's not what it was. It was all of the people who you cannot bench outside of Caleb Johnson were the issue. So, like, that's the worst part about this, is it is not, oh, you have to make this correction. There are no changes to be made. It's play better. And I mean, that's on the players and Tomlin, obviously, coach better, but like, again, it just follows suit. Like, there is no roster change you can make this week to say the team is going to improve, unless you feel different.
No. No, I don't know. I mean, I think everything that you can change is just how you deploy certain players and when you're using certain players. That's all I can think of right now. Aside from that, you just have to play better. Like the middle linebackers have to be better in run defense. They cannot get absorbed by the line of scrimmage, and the defensive and offensive line battle like that. Eh, How many runs yesterday did Kenneth Walker or they held Zach Giovanni down pretty well,
Good
but
old Zach
Zach Giovanni.
Chipotle, baby. Every time
But
he said it, I almost screwed him up. I will tell you guys that one to add a little light to today is that the announcer behind me said his name. He was going through the names before the game, and he said his name, and I said Zach Chibani, and he was like, and he laughed, and I said, the next time he said it, I said Zach Chardonnay, and he said it like right before the game started, and he said Chardonnay, and I said, "Oh, dude, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that to you." So at least there's that. But sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. That's some levity I think is good for today, truly.
For sure.
But what I was getting at was, every Kenneth Walker run, it seemed like the defensive line was getting, pushed back, and then Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson were like stumbling over one of the defensive linemen who were getting pushed back, and then you had
Mm-hmm.
Juan Thornhill trying to come downhill, or Chuck Clark coming downhill, or Jalen Ramsey, and you're like, what? Where is the help? And it was always going away from TJ Watt's side of the field. So you're like, what is happening here? So yeah, I think there's only small changes that can be made in terms of how they are, like schematically, let's call it. I don't
Yep.
think there's like sweeping changes you can employ in 3 days of practice to then execute a new type of defense against the New England Patriots. I'm just hoping maybe Jabril Peppers comes into the game a little bit more. I think that was the one thing that really threw me out too, because I said on Friday, like he was in the rotation, like going through things, like, and I was like, I did not expect him to be even a rotational part of the practice, of his first week with the team. But for him to be immediately in there, I was like, well, you might as well. You're down 700 players. You might as well put in Jabril Peppers on defense. But maybe we'll see more of him against the Patriots in that
He
revenge game.
needs to, man, because Juan Thornhill somehow might have been the worst player on that defense yesterday. I don't think I watched Juan Thornhill make a tackle. It was bad. It was bad.
Tried.
Chris, like 11 times. And it was none of them were an effort worth making. Chris, why wasn't Jalen used more? You're asking me, brother. I don't. That's my biggest question yesterday. And people got on me. I got so many people that were like, dude, he had to be tired after the 30-yard run. No chance he was tired after 30-yard run. That guy was juiced the hell up. He just ran for 35 or 65 yards. He broke every tackle he could possibly break. You keep him in the game. There's 3 more plays between that and the end of the series. You keep him in the game. The rest of the game, I get it. You got to change some things up. That moment, 65 yards, all him. It's the best spark your offense had all day long. And you give him one more run, and then you take him off the field for a guy who's smaller than him on the goal line. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. Like, if Kenneth Gainwell was having a day, I get it. But you keep him on the field. He is not tired. And if he is tired, he's got 2 more plays left. Let him try to do something into that end zone. You know what I mean? He was the only spark to your offense all day. And at your biggest moment, you let him go. And see what happens. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I was super against what they did there. Super against it.
And I think it kind of goes against like what we were talking about earlier and what has been sort of the impression from Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin regarding this offense is like, this is like a hot hand type of offense. Like if Jaylen Warren is, he's picking up all these yards, they gave, at least I had the impression that they were going to run with him as long as that was the case. Like if Kenny G was the hot hand, they were going to ride with him. If Caleb Johnson had somehow found his way into being an effective back, he would have been the go-to guy. Like it was all set up to be like, we have all of these pieces here, and whoever is the one that is working, we're going to keep going back to him because we have all of these plans for all of these moving parts. But then really it's like, it seems like it's just a chaotic plan where it just doesn't really matter. Circumstances be damned. Jaylen Warren can break off a run that had 50 yards after contact, but Kenny G's got to run the next play. So go on out there. And it's like, I don't understand how that makes sense. I don't understand how that's winning football. Seems a little bit to be living in your fears a little bit again, but I can't make sense of it, Chris, to be quite honest. And I don't think Noah and I can really figure out a good reason as to why Jaylen Warren comes out of the game at the moments he does.
No. Chris, are there any good kick returners we could sign? You don't need to sign one. You got like 10 of them. They're pretty good. Caleb Johnson being back there, to be honest, doesn't make any sense. And I talked to some Iowa people who said, like, I was pretty stunned that he was your kick returner. That didn't add up to me. I said, oh, that's really good, actually. That makes me feel so happy and confident in the coaching staff and their decisions. Awesome. Roman Wilson, very fast and an elusive return man. Calvin Austin, fantastic. Jaylen Warren, good. Kenny G, good. Like, you got Scotty Miller, really good. Like, you have guys. You have so many guys who could return kicks. You don't need to go sign somebody, but you can't put Caleb back there again. You know what I mean? For the rest of the season, you can't put Caleb back there. I'm sorry. He wasn't that good at it to say, oh, you get to go back into the lineup. No. Scotty Miller is there. Go put Scotty Miller in there. Like, the only reason you had Caleb out there was because you wanted Caleb to touch the football and to build that confidence. Bad reason, but I get it. Go put somebody else back there. I don't think they need to go sign anybody. I think they got the guys that they need in-house, unless you feel different.
No, I agree 100%. It's not, kick returning is not an important enough part to like go outside of the organization. Just give someone else a chance. Let Scotty Miller, training camp hero as well. Scotty Miller, give him a chance to shine.
I agree. Papaya salad. Let it sink in. The Steelers lost to Sam Darnold badly. Kupp looked like a superstar. What's going on? It's a rough day. It's a rough day for Steelers Nation, for sure. I mean, again, it's week 2. That's the one thing I will say. It's week 2. There's a long season. I'm not saying that it's week 2. We're overreacting. What I'm saying is that it's week 2. It's a long season to figure it out. They got to figure it out. This is not it's one bad game. Don't jump the gun. No. Gun is jumped. It's about fixing it. But you got 15 weeks to fix it. 6 weeks to make decisions on if you got to add guys. A lot of time left to figure it out. Smootest Buddhist, still a KJ defender, and no, Tomlin ain't going anywhere. Tomlin is not. Tomlin's here till he dies, if he wants to be here till he dies. And you could agree with that or disagree with that. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. That's the one argument that you could sit here all day and have or not have. The final answer is the same. Tomlin ain't going anywhere. And no matter how loud things get, Tomlin ain't going anywhere whatsoever. Cody Silva, Peyton Wilson, and Keanu Benton can't stop the run. Yeah, and what sucks is that yesterday our Cole Holcomb play him more argument went right out the door because he did not look any better. Did he look worse? No, but he didn't look any better whatsoever. It's very, very alarming that Logan Lee looked pretty good at nose tackle, and had 2 snaps. It's 2 reps, but I looked right at Alan Saunders, who was sitting next to me in the press box, and we both went, is that Logan Lee is in the game right now? What's happening? And then he made the tackle. We were like, Logan Lee ain't looking bad. This ain't terrible. It's you can't fix it, but you got to try. You got to try for sure. Go ahead. You got thoughts or no?
Well, no, this is just like, I always have thoughts, Noah, but this is what I mean, where there were so many obvious running situations where I even saw yesterday and made note of it that Y.A. Black was lined up in a DN position with Keanu Benton lined up in the DT, the technical nose tackle position, but he's in the middle of the defensive lineup. And I'm like, what? Why? This makes no sense. Yes, Peyton Wilson struggles to stop the run. Has not been a huge part of his game. He is a speedy, coverage, quote unquote, middle linebacker. But Keanu Benton is a very, I think can be a very effective defensive end, but not if you put him in the middle. He just gets eaten alive by a center and a guard chipping on his right shoulder. It's just, you got to find a different way for him to attack the ball and see if that's the issue. And if it still persists, then you're just all right, he's just not a run stopper. Maybe he's not the best option on the defensive line. But if you're going to go out there and put him in the wrong position and in a wrong situation, I don't know how you expect, anything to change.
No, nothing. They wanted him to be Javon Hargrave. He's half the size of Javon Hargrave, and it just doesn't make sense. Chris, is Justin Simmons still available? We might need him. I think shot one, which I don't know if Justin Simmons is still available. Either way, shot one is put Jabril Peppers in, which, look at, I'm not upset about the way that the safeties rotated yesterday. I just think it was I don't think you were going to get anything crazy from Jabril Peppers. What I do think is that after that game, it was okay, you got to test out Jabril Peppers. I don't think you should have forced him in the game Sunday. What I do think is that week 3, Jabril Peppers should be getting his revenge game against the New England Patriots because Juan Thornhill needs to play better. I'm not saying Juan Thornhill's bad. I'm saying he needs to play better. And I think that's where they stand. Go ahead. You got thoughts on this too. I could tell.
You say play better. I think maybe play less is the word.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Some more Jabril Peppers, a little less Juan Thornhill. I thought between Thornhill and Chuck Clark was the more noticeable safety.
Way better.
By a far margin. And I don't trust Chuck Clark more in terms of pass defense, but I don't really trust Juan Thornhill in that regard at all. So, ipso facto, I think Jabril Peppers needs to be on the field a lot more in week 3.
I agree. American Steel, what is wrong with TJ Watt? He's basically been MIA, and Broderick tosses in a very alarming thought here, or stat here. Why did we pay TJ Watt? He hasn't had a sack in 7 straight games. I believe the number 6. Either way, very alarming. Are we starting to hit the point that $41 million a year is starting to look really bad for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Really bad.
We're getting down that road. We certainly are getting down that road. And I sat here day after day and was like, pay this man what he is due. So I think I have to be just as accountable in that regard as well. But the fact remains, he is still of the most elite edge talent rushers. He is in that class. He is, he has not had a sack in 6-7 games, whatever the actual number is, but you gotta believe between him, Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith, Jack Sawyer, if anyone's going to do it of that group, I still have betting money on TJ Watt. I give it until about after the bye week, I will say, is my deadline. If we don't see more TJ Watt like performances in the next 2 games, I think panic meter is getting pushed and just pressing the absolute crap out of that button.
I agree. I think we are getting dangerously close to what the hell's going on with TJ Watt, man. And did you just waste a boatload of money? Papaya salad. How many times did the Steelers put them in 3rd and over 10 and give up a first down, 3rd and goal from the 20? Sea chickens run it in. Don't know how you fix it. Steelers D stinks. That's the whole point here, is that it comes down to the Steelers defense playing better. They have moments and then they just give up terrible plays. And you don't fix it by adjusting who's out there. You're not getting players better than TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward, Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, Jalen Ramsey, and Darius. Those are all great players. They just need to play better. That's what it comes to. They just need to play better. This isn't, they're playing soft zone and it's an issue. No, this is just strictly the Steelers defense has no juice and they got to find some juice. And I think, honestly, I think a part of it was they were too fired up. They were way too fired up for this game, or not for this game, for this season. They held themselves to too high of a standard. I think that's what it was. They looked at themselves as the greatest thing on turf, and they didn't prove a damn thing. I think that's an issue coming into the season, is that they had themselves a little too high on a pedestal. Unless I'm wrong.
No, I think hubris can be a hell of a thing. It was being a training camp, winner is not indicative of regular season success. We've been seeing this recipe, this cycle happen countless times for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it's not that it was, I understood it a couple of months ago in training camp, or, recently. I understood the Juan Thornhill quote about being, potentially historically good. I understood what Peyton Wilson meant when he said how good the middle linebackers can be in pass coverage. I understood why that confidence was there, but they have certainly done nothing to earn it, and they have done nothing to install optimism or instill optimism that they can find that moving forward. Sea Chickens is hilarious, by the way.
Yeah, so awesome. Lindsay, Noah, did you ever see them practice that play that Caleb Johnson messed up in practice? Because apparently they practice it every day. Yes, they do practice it every day. Caleb Johnson makes that play every day. I don't know what happened in that moment. Caleb didn't give us an answer to what happened in that moment. He just said, I got to play better tomorrow. Yeah, brother, but what happened today? That's what I want to know. We didn't get it. But yes, they practice it every day, which is why it was just like, what the hell just happened, man? How did you just do that? But it was not lack of preparation. I'll tell you that. Wasn't Danny Smith for sure. And we'll finish it off with Mike Sharp. Why is it when you and I see a guy that would fit in on the Steelers D, the Steelers don't pull off the trade or signing? 2 years ago, Bobby Wagner would have been awesome. This is a great question. Okay. Why do you, me, and everybody else see problems that should be fixable, that are fixable, that make sense, additions that make sense, and the Steelers refuse to acknowledge them?
Wow.
Why does that happen?
Well, I think there is a very stark contrast between what the coaching staff and executive management team of the Steelers, the lens and evaluation process that they use on players compared to like what the media uses, compared to what fans in the game use, compared to just like the perspectives that they have. There's so much, like, I'm not paid millions of dollars to coach a team.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine if I was paid millions of dollars to coach a team or to be a general manager, my priorities might be slightly different than someone who gets paid to cover them as a journalist. Like, I have a completely different perspective on how this team should be built and why that should happen. If it's my job every day, maybe I don't have that same perspective if I'm in charge of signing these players, making these deals, and my livelihood's at stake if I make the wrong one. I don't know, and I don't say that to like make excuses. I just think the perspectives and what they bring to the table is just so vastly different than what I do when I wake up in the morning and go for my walks and then kiss my wife and then, start writing articles. So like I don't really know all of those intimate details behind closed doors for the Steelers, but I think there is a huge discrepancy between how, Jacob evaluates talent and how NFL coaches evaluate it. And we see so often how that plays out whenever, we're like, why don't they go sign Justin Simmons? Easy fit. They do nothing. And then sign Jabril Peppers, before week 2. It's just like, it makes no sense. It makes no sense.
No, they have.
Do you have a better explanation?
No, that's exactly it. Is they have ways of going about things that I will never understand, nor will I know because I'm not in the room. And sometimes you get insight on why they make moves and you question them. And sometimes they make moves and you get insight and you go, oh, that makes a lot of sense, But a lot of times the Steelers make decisions, like every franchise makes decisions, and you go, I feel like there's 150,000 people that see something different, but the 4 guys that made that decision, okay, sounds good. We're going to trust you. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. Cody Silva, 500 passes completed in the middle of our defense. I don't know if that's a real number, but that's a Noah number if I've ever heard of a Noah number. At 5, that's roughly the amount of passes that have been completed over the middle of the Steelers defense in 2 weeks is about 500. So pretty spot on. Shout out Cody Silva. It's Juju. TJ is not the problem. He gets chipped, doubled, tripled every play, and teams refuse to run to his side because of how great he is against the run. I think when you're getting paid $41 million a year, you learn how to beat that and get around it, or you aren't worth $41 million a year. That's my very honest opinion. Maybe too honest, and maybe I'm a little blind by the situation, but I think at the end of the day, if you get paid $41 million a year, there are no excuses to why you are not making an impact. I think plain and simple.
Beautiful. I think it's a mic drop.
I appreciate you. The Rocky Mountain Oyster Salad. Caleb seems completely overwhelmed by the NFL. I get that same feeling that Caleb is it's moving really fast for him right now. And I hope it slows down. A lot of guys deal with this early in their career. Some of them, it works out better. Some of them, it doesn't. I think we'll find out if it works for Caleb, but I agree with you. I've been saying it all summer. Caleb looks like the game is moving a lot faster than he thought it was going to, and it's got to slow down if he's got any shot of making it and making an impact for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we'll see if he does. All right, guys. With that said, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. With that said, we will be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg.